Points, the Video Game Book Club podcast. Today we're starting a discussion on Detroit Become Human. I'm your host Markus, and joining me today as always are the homies. First off, we have Greg.
What up?
Next, we got Trevor.
What's going on?
And last but not least, we got the homie Dante.
What does it mean to be human?
We'll find out. So Detroit Become Human is Trevor's game for the month of November. So I'm going to kick it to him so he can open it up for us.
All right. So I'm going to go on ahead and offer this disclaimer. I think all of us are aware of some of the controversy behind the studio Quantic Dream. And by us playing this game, we are in no way condoning or supporting or promoting, the work environment and all that going on with them. But the studio was founded... Quantic Dream was founded in 1997 by composer David Cage, and before this he had been a composer for 15 years, and I guess at that point he decided to start writing video games. And
when you say composer, you mean musical composer?
Yes, he was a music composer.
Huh.
And the Quantic Dream is known for making like really gripping narratives and interactive storytelling. They developed games like The Nomad Soul, Fahrenheit, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and then the game that we're playing now, Detroit Become Human. And I think, for the most part, their games have been PlayStation exclusive. I'm pretty sure Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls were PlayStation exclusives as well.
I think Indigo Prophecy came out on Xbox as well. I think that was it.
We should also kind of explain Indigo Prophecy / Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So, I can't remember which is which, but in one region it's known as Fahrenheit, and when it got ported over to the US, it either got, I think it's Indigo Prophecy over here.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So yeah, that game literally had a name change because of localization or something like that.
Gotcha. And so, with that, I think it was like right before Heavy Rain. That was when they started coming up with the concept for Detroit Become Human. And the first glimpse that we actually saw, or that we got to see, was in 2012. And it was through a PS3 tech demo titled Kara. And it was basically just like this short video of an android being built. There's like these robotic arms basically putting together an android, and it has this AI that's kind of talking, and then you have a narrator talking to it. They're having a conversation kind of about the android's feelings and emotions, and them basically becoming human. But the voice of Kara in that video is Valerie Curry, and she actually reprises her role in Detroit Become Human for the full game. And so later on, David Cage wanted to turn this into a full game, and they started development on it after Heavy Rain was released in 2013. And they first announced it in 2015 at Paris Games Week, and then they came out with 2 additional character trailers at E3 2016 and 2017, showing off 2 of the playable characters that you get to play. And then in April of 2018, they actually released a demo for PlayStation where you could play the very first opening chapter with Connor, called The Hostage. And then the game officially released in May of 2018. So this is probably the newest game that we've played for this podcast as of now.
That sounds right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Detroit Become Human features 3 playable characters, Connor, Markus, and Kara, who are all androids residing in this setting, which is based on Detroit, Michigan. And it's during like an apartheid / civil rights-esque era, where there's like this divide between humans and androids. And I guess I won't go too far into the story, but basically I picked this game because I really wanted to play it. I played the demo when it first came out, and it seemed really fun. It was like I've played all the Telltale games, and the demo seemed like it was going to be a good mix between the investigation in the Telltale Batman series and the quick time events that are in the Wolf Among Us series, or I guess single game since they won't be coming out with the second one. But yeah, I was really interested in playing it, and also because of what I heard from the narrative about it having some of the racial undertones in it, and then of course with Jesse Williams playing one of the androids.
Oh, you're a big Grey's Anatomy fan, I see.
No, just as far as his activism,
Oh, I got you. I was just joking.
So,
no, I'm more of a Scrubs guy.
Oh. What's up, Dante?
I was gonna ask, what's everybody's history with Quantic Dreams games?
Well, I have no history because I literally looked up the games that they made while Trevor was talking.
Wait, you played Heavy Rain?
I've watched people play Heavy Rain, but that's about it. I never played it, and yeah, so I don't have anything to add about. I thought Heavy Rain was very silly when I watched it play. Jason. And that's really it. I remember it being really ridiculous. I think we've had Fahrenheit or what is the other title we said it was called? Indigo Prophecy. We've had that suggested a couple times, or both times that we've had fan submitted games. That's always been something that in the running. So I actually didn't know that there were different named games until that happened, or they were the same game. I didn't know that until that started popping up on our list. So never played Nomad Soul, never played Beyond Two Souls. So nothing for me.
Trevor, have you played any?
Whoever was playing it when Markus was watching Heavy Rain, I think I was watching it too.
It was like
I think it might have been
Joe.
Thomas.
I think it was Thomas.
Okay. But that's about it.
Because, yeah, he got the worst possible ending, so it had to be Thomas.
But yeah, I had never even heard of any of the other games. Well, I've heard of Beyond Two Souls, but that's because it's newer.
What about you, Greg?
So I played a little bit of Indigo Prophecy when that came out. I played Heavy Rain and I finished that. And I believe that's it. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think that's the only 2 games I've played.
Did you finish any of them?
Yeah, I did finish Heavy Rain.
Okay, cool. So, I've played through Heavy Rain, I'd like to say twice, maybe.
Big fan,
Played
huh?
through Beyond... Huh?
Big fan?
Yeah, that game is one of those very controversial games that, in fact, all of David Cage's games are you either fall on one side or the other. You either love it or you hate it. Very few people have like a middling perception of most of those games. But Heavy Rain is probably one of my favorite PlayStation 3 games. Beyond Two Souls I always get them mixed up. Yeah, Beyond Two Souls, the other PS3 game, I didn't care for that much. And that one actually had a very interesting release. So originally, you're playing as Ellen Page, who I can't think of who her actual in-game character is, but essentially, it's her story as a child through an adult, and it happens to skip around. It's not all sequential, so you'll do like one chapter is like baby Ellen Page, then like you'll go to 20-year Ellen Page, then you'll go to like 7-year-old Ellen Page, and then you'll go to like 14-year-old Ellen Page. So it was kind of a mess to actually follow the actual story of that game. But then in the Game of the Year edition they put out, they added a mode where you can do all that stuff sequentially. So since I played that at launch, I didn't have that option. And then I think I played Fahrenheit a year or two after that. And that game's really fun, but it also might be the stupidest game I've ever played in my life. So, yeah, I have a very mixed history with the studio.
I was gonna say, wasn't the Ellen Page that had the controversy because there was like a nude scene?
Yeah, so
Because now
apparently
I remember.
they did some nude modeling with Ellen Page, and it was to be used for models, like in-game models. But then fans actually found a way to like patch around a shower scene or something where you could actually see the full model, and that's where that controversy came from.
Darn creeps. Okay. Well, you guys ready to get into Detroit? Okay. Sounds good. So Detroit takes place in the future. It's in 2038. I guess this is a very futuristic take on how society is right now. There's a lot of like cool tech. There's a lot of humanoid androids that are basically they're no way to distinguish between a human and an android for me physically, besides they have like a LED like ring, or not even, what is it, like a light ring around their right temple, almost like the 360 controller, like the little light up around the guide button. They have one of those that changes colors, like blue, yellow, red, and all that stuff. There is, I don't know, like there's a whole lot of like context that they put throughout the chapters in this game about how the society is. There's like every chapter has some type of notebook or like magazine or something that you can read through, and you can actually read articles in the game. So there's like there's a big controversy in the society. A lot of people are, it's crazy. People are still upset about losing their jobs to robots, I guess. Or like it's something that like we are, like, people now in 2018 are upset about jobs becoming automated, and apparently 20 years later, or in our future, that still will be something that people haven't come to grips with.
To be fair, these robots are like, we're at the first level of automation right now, where it's just like, oh well, a register can be operated. These robots are so advanced they can literally do human actions. They have the full like
That's true.
functioning process of a human. So the mid to high level jobs are starting to get replaced now.
And it's gotten deep, or at this point in their timeline, it's gotten deep to the point where it's almost like people getting upset about people coming to the U.S. and getting jobs and working
Yeah,
here.
or like black people dying but still kneeling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's homeless people like have signs that say like Android took my job or something like that, or there's actually one character that you work with in this game that like there's actually a bunch of characters, like, actually, if I'm being real, and this is maybe going a little bit too far ahead, it seems like everybody in this game hates androids except for like one character, maybe two characters.
Yeah.
And it seems like, in that respect, it seems a little unrealistic because of...
Define hate.
Okay, they may
Because
not...
I feel like there's a lot of people that see them as tools and they're like, oh wow, this is super handy. But they definitely don't see them as friends.
Okay.
I think it displays the people who hate the androids, and it doesn't necessarily show like
That's true.
the
That's
millions
true.
of people who have them in their homes.
Yeah, okay, that's
Because I mean,
fair.
they wouldn't be making them in mass if that was the case. If everybody just hated them.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess the caveat of having a story, and I mean, there's ways to show the other side, but to put the conflict, or to give the characters that, you know, we're playing as conflict, they try to focus on, like, the controversies of having an android or being an android.
Yeah, but like it's having androids, or just the androids as a thing, have permeated basically all of humanity. So like I read pretty much every single article in this game because I really like the concept and the story of like this world. And like there's zoos that they're just having all android animal zoos that will be able to recreate extinct animals, which that sounds really cool. Uh, as long as it's not dinosaurs. And then other things that happen in the society. Bees have been entirely extinct now. They're experimenting with android in sports. So every team in I forgot what sport it was, if it was basketball or baseball or something or football, but every single sport or every team in that sport could have a one android limit. And it was crazy to see because like you would think like if this is like the thing with androids, it seems like in this game is that they all have a single thing that they are like specialize in, it seems like. So like they can't do like everything. So like they're having androids in a sports league seems very interesting concept because they would just seem to dominate the entire league. But then it seemed like in that article that I was reading that the human players were actually for it because it forced them to step their game up to another level too, which is cool to think about in concept. And then there was actually even an article later on in the game that I read that I want to ask you guys about later, but Canada apparently is an Android-free country, and it's interesting to think about like a country that decides to completely disassociate itself from like not I won't say advancing, but like really that's kind of what I'm trying to say is like how is that like I don't know I just like what kind of country...
it's like if you think about it, it's almost what North Korea does with the internet.
Yes, but I don't know, it's just like man, like is that like can you imagine the type of...
I think it was the people's choice if I remember the article. Like it's been a while since I played this game. I played it back when it launched. But I'd like to say that there was essentially a vote, do we want to have androids in our society or not? And I think the people voted on no. So it wasn't like a government decided.
Yeah, but it's just crazy to think about like the kind of mindset a entire country has to have towards androids that they decide to not have them. And then it's kind of like, is that for the betterment? Like what is their society like in regards to like people's perception of their country? And like I don't know, it's just very interesting because like kind of what Trevor was saying where like people almost feel that way about immigration right now, and to think like if there was just a country that like never in the history of their country's existence they ever let in people that weren't from that country, like that would become a point of pride for the people that live there. But how would the outside world view that country? And like what kind of mindset, like how alien is that mindset of the people that live there versus like the people of the rest of the world?
Well, I think we're also maybe jumping ahead a little bit where these androids aren't perceived as having actual emotions. Like they have thought processes, they can say that they think or whatever, but they don't actually like humans don't associate them with having pain, having fear, having
they
the
can't
things
create
that quote unquote
art.
make people.
They can't create art, so they can't like create music or like they can, but it's very like still
Just a copy
and by the books. Yeah, so they're like there's actually a scene in the game where a character is asked to paint something, and then the best you can do at the time is just copy something you see. So they're not necessarily like they lack the, like you said, the emotion that it takes to be able to create like an art form or to have an art form, I guess.
I think at the same time too, another thing to look at as far as Canada being a no Android zone is, like Dante said, they don't necessarily see them as humans. So they may look at it as like, no, we don't want the new iPhone in our country.
But
Yeah, it's more of an export rather than like.
I don't know. Like, you guys are right in like saying it like that. It's like, yeah, we don't want this particular thing, but just when I playing the game, it's like these are, for lack of a better word, they're like they look like humans. So like, there's no way to tell besides this one tell, and they can blend in your society almost. And it's just crazy to think about, where it's just like it's almost like, who can you trust? Like,
that was the thing that bugged me the most. The fact that they can just pop that LED off the side of their head, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, now you can't discern them from like a normal human being.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy on these streets.
The thing that's funny too is that like through Android archetypes, like through movies and everything, they're made in order to look human so that they can blend in, so that humans feel more comfortable around them.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of has the reverse effect in this world. Like, they don't want them to blend in, and it's like they're using it as a way to, to divide them or to cast them out, as them being android.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like really the only other like how that plays out in the game, or like the setting is I believe at this point, I mean, like I said, it's 2038. I think Detroit has become like a super, like, they have one of the biggest manufacturers of androids in this company called CyberLife, and so Detroit, was known, and I think that's also really interesting, is Detroit was known in the early 1900s as like this super modern city, very wealthy with because of the cars and having all those car plants, the Ford factories and all that. And then they had their decline in the, I guess, starting in, I believe, the 60s or 70s, 50s or 60s, something like that. And like now, like, Detroit doesn't have nearly the money it used to, and like there's still, like, even to this day, like buildings that have like been in disarray and just slowly decaying and becoming like being abandoned, and just for 50 plus years. And now here you are in 2038. It's 20 years from now, and Detroit is almost like one of the, it's definitely one of the global leaders, and definitely one of the definitely one of the domestic leaders. I think in this world, LA has basically, climate change has basically decimated the coast. So I believe like cities like Miami and LA are shells of their former selves, and like Detroit is this shining beacon of like modern cities in this world. And that's really interesting that it's having like its resurgence or reclaim to being a pioneer city. And I thought that was very interesting. And despite Android manufacturing being the reason why Detroit is back on the map, like there are plenty of people rioting and just actively being hostile to androids that they see on the street. So that was really jarring to see, where it's like these people are openly like bumping into, pushing on, protesting, all that stuff, and like they're not even protected in the same way that a person is protected. So like you see like there's quite a bunch of agitation that these crowds have with certain androids, and it's not until like a while before police interfere and just say lay off of it, like let it go, let it be. Where if it was a person, that cop would act like nothing, you right there, and when it's an android, it's like this android can get pushed and shoved and kicked and punched and all that for a while before anybody interferes to like stop
it's more
it.
of a fear of property damage than actual
Exactly.
I think even there's one scene where they say, "Oh, if you keep doing that, I'm gonna have to find you if you damage it." Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is just like, geez, like, uh, man, that's and it's especially because it happened to a android of color, I guess.
New
It made
slaves.
me it made me feel a type of way, like just like some of the way they talked about like.
There's some allegory in this game.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, like y'all, like they're really driving home the point, you know. Like, I get it. Um, so yeah, let's get into some of these characters. So there's three androids that you play as. We're gonna the way the game is set up is each chapter for the most part you take the role of just for the most part a single one of these androids for the entirety of the chapter, with exception there's like one chapter that you play as two. But I think instead of going chapter to chapter, I think we're going to go from character to character, so that way you get like the full breadth of what we've experienced with this character up to whatever point. So we'll start with the character Kara, who is she's the only female android that you take control of, and she is like, I think the game starts off and she's in an android store, and or you're in an android store, I guess, and you find out that you've been damaged, and so you've been repaired, and a man named Todd is the one picking you up, and then you end up taking a ride to his house, and from then on you find out the duties you have. You're basically like a housemaid, so you start playing out as a housemaid, and you clean dishes, and you take care of the daughter, you vacuum, you do like all the maid chores, you wash dishes, you wash laundry, and you kind of see this dude, Todd, and he starts to, I don't know, like my radar immediately starts going up, and this dude seems like a real low life. You find some, I guess they have drugs in this game called red ice, and it's kind of like I don't know, like something that they smoke, maybe like some type their form of meth, the future meth or something like that. And so he's been doing that. He actively talks aloud about his dislike of androids because he lost his job because of androids. So he has no job, and I mean it culminates with him just basically just spazzing out. Like I don't know. You just kind of get a feeling like this is not a good relationship between Kara and Todd, and even Todd and his daughter. It seems like he's always like, "What are you doing? Like, get out of here!" Or, all that.
did anybody notice like some of the small cues, like when you first enter the home, like on there, the little stand by the door, there's like past due bills and like failed credit card or like rejected credit card stuff on there.
Didn't he even buy you in kind of a weird way? Like, I remember there being something weird about like the money he pays for you.
I can't remember.
I don't
She
remember
was
that.
she like a demo or something?
No,
Or
so he said that she had gotten in a car accident, like she got hit by a car or something. That's why she was damaged. So he was getting her repaired, and so she was at the shop to be picked back up, and you end up finding out that he actually like did the damage to her later on. So he just blamed it and said it was a car accident, and so because they had to factory reboot her or something. So like she was had worked for this family previously, but now after the factory reboot and the repair, she's like going through it again for the first time, I guess you could say. So she's reacquainting herself with everything. Did I answer your question?
You talking about my question?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I meant initially how he got her, like before
Oh,
she was damaged. Like, just man, as soon as I pulled up at this house, I already knew what was about to happen. It's like,
like
man,
yeah, that
this is a trap
was
house.
yeah. The dude lived in a really crappy like area. Like you could kind of see like they played to great effect. He lives in like a super industrial looking area, but like the houses that you've seen up
That side
to
of town you don't want to go on.
exactly like 8 Mile or something.
And he's
Yeah.
got an android in there, which I'm
That's
sure
what I'm
wasn't
wondering.
cheap.
Like, I think, it was like he probably something he bought before he lost his job, and it's like the last vestige of like when he had money, because he definitely doesn't have money now. Go ahead.
Did we want to talk about how the game plays out as far as like mechanics on how you kind of interact with everything?
Yeah.
So, kind of in similar fashion to like the other Quantic Dream games, this game has like a lot of contextual actions, right? So, when you're kind of just going through the environment, when you have to interact with things, you'll have an icon pop up with like whatever inputs needed, or like if it
These aren't even like traditional inputs. It's like,
yeah.
hey, I need to use my left hand, so let me use the like right thumbstick and do this quarter circle, dragon punch thing, and hopefully it opens the door before this time's out.
Yeah, and even has some sections where there's quick time events. Same thing as that kind of you'll see the button prompt come up, just press it, and then also I don't know if it should be the same as the other Quantic Dream games, but usually the situations like that have like branching paths depending on if you actually get the QTE correct or not.
Wait, say that again.
So there's like branching paths in some of the quick time events in this game, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it all depends on like your performance during those actions.
Yeah, there's that, and not every time too. Sometimes it like, I think it may not branch the path. It just may mean like how successful you are in the action or the activity that you're doing as well. And there's sometimes
Yeah, some of it's just for flavor.
Yeah.
But this game does a really cool thing where at the end of the chapter, it does this big blowout of pretty much scene by scene of what happened during the chapter, and it will show you all of the choices you didn't make. And you'll just be like, Jesus,
Well,
I only hit maybe 20% of these blocks.
It doesn't show you what you haven't done. It just shows you what you have, and you can see all these other things that you could have done, because it doesn't spell out what those other options are. I think
they're locked.
The benefit of it is when it's supposed to add replayability, because you like do a chapter and you see like, oh, like there's a whole bunch of things that I didn't do or didn't see. I don't know what they are, so it promotes like replayability and like going back through and like, oh, I'm gonna redo that thing and see that other part, and you can see the percentage of your friends and the percentage of the world that have played the game, like what they did as well. So it's really cool. It's really cool. It's like a cracked out, like a expanded out version of what Walking Dead does, where that you can kind of see what everybody else chooses. This one is like you can see like every single decision being made versus just the major ones. But there's more decisions in this to make than there are usually in the Telltale style games.
Yeah, and like in those games, you might see 10 decisions, whereas in this one, it's just like, there are 50 things on screen right now.
Yeah,
And,
it's like, yep.
They all branch out.
Mm-hmm.
They all branch out, and sometimes, like, you might start a chapter on a completely different branch than somebody else, and they might not even intersect.
And they also take the same approach to, I guess, dialogue as well, where it's like sometimes you have choices that you can make and there's limited time, so then you have that thing of like, oh, is this what I really want to say? Or, you have to kind of take that into account.
I could be wrong, but does this game give you a silent option in a lot of cases?
I feel like it just defaults to an answer if you don't. Like, there's one answer that you see that it ticks down on, and if you don't respond. It just gives you that.
Okay.
The only this is always the thing that I have with these types of games. It's like, I mean, even games that don't have the timer, like Mass Effect, when you have dialogue options, I feel like sometimes it's a little bit not truthful, and like you can choose something and you think it in your head it's gonna sound one way, and then when they actually say it, you're like, oh, I didn't think it meant that. Like that happened to me a bunch of times where it was like, oh, that sounded way more harsh than I wanted it to. I would have chosen something else, you know. Yeah, I don't know, and the we'll get into it with each character, but I do like that each character has their own like
Personality.
Personality, but like gameplay mechanics as well. Like each character is different, and we'll get to it. Just like some of the things that you can do. But let's continue on with Kara, I guess. So yeah, you can kind of see him treating his daughter Alice pretty poorly, and you end up when you finish your chores, you get the opportunity. You have to go upstairs and clean upstairs, and you find out you find some things. I guess if you explore, you can find some things about Todd, and just get some more context clues about him and him and Alice's relationship. I think he ends up saying like his wife left him because he got fired and like all these things. So it's just him and Alice now, and they have like a very not positive relationship. And so once you go upstairs, you get the opportunity to talk to Kara. Excuse me, I keep saying that. You get the opportunity to talk to Alice some, and then flash forward to around dinner time. You've made food for them, and at this point, I think Todd is like super smoked out, and he's just really hostile and abusive to Alice, and you basically have to decide what you want to do, if you want to calm Todd down or protect Alice. And I think this is when they kind of start introducing some of the QuickTime events, and I guess this is going to be one of the important ones, but like I'm guessing everybody here decided to protect Alice.
Yeah, I figured that. I mean, I figured it was one of these things where it shows up as a choice, but I mean, there's only one outcome of it, but I didn't know if there was like another way, like where you don't protect her and then she actually gets like hurt or whatever.
So, I guess one thing, because I guess we're going to go back and talk about this in general, but like, there's a very specific scene where, what's the dude's name?
Todd. Yeah.
Todd goes upstairs and he's like, "You don't run from me, Alice. You don't run from me." And it's like, "Hey, Kara, you stay still and you just stay here." And there's a little like visual in game, like they do these text overlays where it's just like, "Stay still." But then this is where Alice becomes a deviant, or Kara becomes a deviant, which is an android that's essentially able to overcome their programming. And you have this thing where she has this, I guess you could call it like an out-of-body experience.
She breaks the third wall.
Yeah.
She literally breaks the third wall, and she's able to override her stuff and go upstairs, despite being instructed.
Yeah, basically disobey orders. And like it's a pretty cool moment because as you see when you're playing with all these different characters, in world there are just like the game makes it seem like you can do all these things, but you're kind of limited to what you can do in this environment. And like when you try to hit up against the edge of where you can go, there's like a red, you do not go here or whatever, right? And it's basically like saying like, oh, like your objective or the mission or the task that you're set out to complete, you don't need to go over there, so you can't go over there. So this is like I think we end up seeing that. I think the game is purposely set up to make you see that, like you can't break laws, like you can't cross the street when it's not the pedestrian's turn to cross the street. So like we've seen so many times leading up to this point where you have to stay within the confines of your task. So I think it's it's super awesome time, or it's super powerful moment when it allows you to not only see that, but then you can just break through and just know I'm going to do this. And I don't know, I really like that scene where you end up breaking that wall and becoming a deviant and overriding the command that you were supposed to obey. Um, what do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, this was probably, I guess, one of the defining moments, or the first defining moments of the game for me. Um, because, like you said, everything just started branching out from here, and you could actually see that there were choices. Because from the very beginning, like as soon as you get dropped off, he gives you a task. The only thing you can do is that task. Like you can explore a little bit, but you can't really do anything outside of that. But then, as soon as you break your protocol or your programming, you get two options instead. And unlike y'all, I chose to try to calm Todd down first,
Wow.
de-escalate the situation. Well, Alice had already ran upstairs, so I figured, she was safe as long as Todd didn't go upstairs. Um, that was just my thinking behind it. But eventually it did lead to going upstairs anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But the only other thing was, I guess I'm not used to some of the controls on PlayStation. I just got a PlayStation last year, and so I've only been playing exclusive games for it. But like some of the quick time events caught me off guard, like especially the ones where you had to turn the controller and
Yep.
a few other things. And so I'm literally looking at the screen trying to, decipher exactly what I'm supposed to do. And sometimes I would just miss it because I was trying to figure out, oh, I gotta, pull the controller towards me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the game does that great of a job helping you discern between making a long press, or not a long press, but tapping
A tap
versus
a
Doesn't
map.
it literally tap the button?
I think it kind of pulses,
doesn't it?
and that's what it's supposed to signify.
I don't think it's I don't think it's effective enough personally. Because there was especially like it's not necessary. Like I don't know. Like I'm with Trevor. Like I'm used to button prompts and the whole button being like a different color because of 360. So I mean, obviously I've had PS4 a little bit longer than Trevor, but I don't really play like exclusive games. I play like Overwatch and like Street Fighter and like all these other stuff. That's in Rocket League. That's pretty customizable. So like it was hard for me to discern between it being a long press or being like a multi-tap thing. And it's also just not something that I'm expecting in a, which I know is stupid, but it's not something that I'm expecting in like a series of QuickTime events. It's not always like I'm not thinking, oh, I need to be tapping this really quickly instead of just hitting it, because they'll switch. And so I got like later on in the game, I got caught a couple times where it was like, oh crap, I hit the button. Why didn't it? And then I was like, oh, it was supposed to be one of the tapping ones. So I wish they did a better job, at least for me, or maybe there was some way I could make it a little bit more obvious. But I'm a scrub, so what do I know?
Like in Telltale games, like when you have to tap a button, like there's like a little gauge that goes around the button until you've tapped it enough in order to complete that event. Or like if you have to move the stick in a certain direction, I mean, it puts a giant arrow right there in front of the screen.
Yeah, like where it's rapidly
I know
going up and down.
Yeah.
For the holds, at least, they have something that fills up.
Well,
Yeah,
it does.
but like but you don't know until you hit the button.
Right.
So like, especially like for me, a lot of times there's a very specific scene that I don't want to talk about till we get there. But like, if you hold the button, then the button starts to go up. But like, sometimes it's a tap, sometimes it's a hold, sometimes it's a multi press. And I don't feel like there's like it's not till you hit the button do you know what you have to do, if that makes any sense.
It does, but I also think in a lot of those scenarios, if I remember right, like you have to look at the item or the action that it's trying to tell you to do and kind of discern.
But like it's specific.
Like if you get next to a bookshelf and you know there's something behind it, it's probably going to be a hold.
Yeah, but I'm not complaining about in the everyday. I'm complaining about specifically in the quick time events where it's like my character is scuffling with Todd. And that part, it was like, I can't, like, there's no...
I got you. I
Yeah.
got you.
I don't remember it being too big of an issue, but I think for the
Todd beat
ones
my
that
ass. Todd beat my ass.
like,
Hey, man, you know what? They just needed a tutorial.
there you go. Because I could have swore like if it was one where you had to like rapidly press, it would like kind of pulse, and then I couldn't remember what the other thing was, but it had to be something somewhat intuitive because like I said, I don't remember.
So
like
the ones that you're supposed to hold, it does have like a little square or rectangle around the button, but it's very faint and.
Sorry. Oh, man. It's faint. Okay.
He sounds like a hater, man.
I mean, it doesn't go solid until you hold it long enough for it.
Did you adjust your brightness?
Man, I made it so bright.
I'm sorry.
I didn't want any jump scares in this game.
So,
I think we've talked about buttons enough.
Okay. Yeah, basically Todd, he got some good hits in on me because I couldn't tell the difference between
Yeah,
like,
good form.
Yeah.
Wasn't missing any of his prompts.
So like there's another scene later on too that we'll talk about. But how does your guys' encounter with Todd end? Because in my game, like, you find he has a gun, and I'm assuming this is your guys' too, because you guys are pretty thorough like me, and you end up shooting him.
Oh, dang.
yeah.
Oh, okay, my
God.
bad. Trevor over here trying to calm down, so...
I had found the gun. I don't know if you find the gun before that. Well, you can't find it before the scuffle. I don't know if that's the time
Yeah,
everybody
you can.
did.
It's in his dresser, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
I didn't take
I
it.
guess you don't have to take it. I didn't think about that. Well, I already knew that he was going to come at me sideways the way he was talking about Android, so I hold my peace
Don't
to
you
get my
find
peace.
like a photo or something of him, your dismembered old self or something?
Oh,
yeah, when
so-
Alice gives you that key to like a little lockbox she has, it has an illustration
Oh,
of
she
that.
has drawings of it. It's like
Yeah.
crayon Oh
Yeah.
man, that was messed up.
See, the
Yeah.
thing is, when I first saw it, I thought it was the mom. So I thought he killed the mom.
He's literally dismembering people like some type of sawhead type of dude.
Hey, man,
Oh man.
he on that stuff.
The red stuff.
You know what? Okay, we'll talk about it later too. So yeah, what happened in your game, Trevor? Did you shoot him, Greg?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So after I tried to calm Todd down, he basically knocks me down. We have like a scuffle throughout the house, like on the first floor. And he knocks me down and he goes upstairs.
You got me on the counter.
He goes upstairs, so I have to follow him up there and figure out which room they're in. And I finally find where both of them are, and then that's where I kind of try to protect Alice from that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of just trying to keep Todd away from Alice. And then once Todd's kind of, taken aback by the fact that I'm actually fighting back at this point.
Disobeying.
Yeah. And so you're able to catch him off guard, catch him slipping, and he caught that fade. And you're able to escape. I think we escaped through the window.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and ended up catching the bus. And from what I read online, once you get out of the house, if you don't move fast enough, Todd will catch you, and he will lay them hands on you.
So I'm kind of curious how the game goes because isn't that kind of, well, I don't know. Him dying, isn't that part of like one of the story beats?
I think it's part of it, but like I also think like they could easily say instead of like android.
We need to run away from the police. It's like, oh well, Todd reported the police on us.
Yeah, so it could go from being like you're wanted on murder, basically, to you're
to just a
wanted
kidnapping
on kidnapping.
thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, don't get me wrong, it's still a video game. Yeah, so the same thing for us. So then you end up like taking the bus to Detroit City proper, and at this point it's late. You have no money. You guys are on the run. You have to find a place to crash for the night. So you have a bunch of different options. I think there's like an abandoned house. There's a parking lot. There's or like a parking lot that has like an abandoned car. There's a hotel/motel situation that you have to get some money from, and or you have to steal some money. So there's like a bunch of choices that you can make at this point. And regardless of what you choose, you guys have a place to crash. And I don't know. It's kind of weird because like there is like choices, and I'm sure we probably made different choices, but like ultimately, like you get a place to stay. Well,
where did you stay?
I stayed. So in order to stay at the hotel, motel, whatever, you had to have money. So I ended up going to the gas station, and I stole money from.
What?
Yeah, man, I stole money, man.
I didn't even see the gas station.
It was a convenience store, like a 24/7 convenience store.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, Greg, was your thing a sarcastic thing, or that was like, oh, this is something you can do?
No, it's just more like I'm just thinking of the kind. Like I don't know. I was putting myself in the shoes of Car. Like,
so you're trying to say that I'm a bad person?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking, like, I got the gun on me. I'm like, you know what? I could rob this person, but I'm like, I don't want to.
Oh no! I didn't rob him at gunpoint.
Oh, you just stole the money? Oh, well, that was the option I had because I had the gun. So it's like,
yeah, I had the gun too. But like, what I ended up doing is I had Alice knock over the display.
Play decoy?
She played decoy.
Monster! You monster!
I stole a candy bar for her though.
Because like she even made me feel bad because when you're walking around, you can go into like you're looking for a place to stay or whatever, and you walk into a laundromat. And I was just gonna take some clothes to give to her.
What?
Well, hold on. I was gonna hold on. I was gonna do that, right? And then she was like, "Oh, but those aren't our clothes. We can't take those." And then I was like, "Yeah, you're right. You know what? I'm not gonna do this." And
she said that to me.
And from that point on, I'm like, "Well, I can't." You go to the convenience store. It's like, man, I could rob this dude. I could steal some money, but I'm like, I already felt bad about even taking the clothes because of what she said. So I'm like, I'm not gonna do this.
All right, so here's go ahead, Dante.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so for me, I went to the convenience store first. Afterwards, she chastised me. She's like, I can't believe you stole. You stole. And then we were walking, and she gives me that, like, don't steal. You're going to steal clothes? No. And so I left, and then I'm like, I went over to the hotel, and I'm like, let's go in. But then I saw no androids, and I'm like, well, I don't have anything to cover up the fact that I'm an android. So I went back, and I'm like, and then when I was walking back, she starts shivering. So I'm like, not only are you cold, but I can't get us into this hotel unless I cover up my clothes. So I was like, I'm gonna steal these clothes. So I stole the clothes, and like,
bruh.
And then we got into the hotel, no problem.
So I gotta say, this game does an amazing job of just bringing out your like paternal instincts in some cases. Because as much as I just chastised Markus about like robbing the store and whatnot, I did my paces through that store about 2 or 3 times before I decided. I was like, I can't do this in front of Alice.
Yeah.
And just you see her shivering. It's raining. It's cold, and you're like, I need to do something fast, but I don't know what to do. And like, I really had a moment of panic for this video game character.
That's exactly how I felt, and that's why it was just like, because I didn't want to steal the clothes, but I also like she started shivering. I'm like, she's trying to, and also I was just thinking the environment she was, and then I immediately like, well, this game is not necessarily even realistic because like her dad was abusive and like all these things, and I'm just thinking like if you come from like a situation like that, like I don't think you're gonna be as pure hearted as she's like. It's just it was a little too much like heavy handed to me. And like, oh, you're doing the wrong thing. And I was like, girl, your dad like smokes. You live in a trap house. Like he beats you. He beat me. Like he destroyed me in front of you. Like you're worried about me trying to take care of you. Like, girl, stop. Like,
I mean, you literally did just murder her dad in front of her eyes.
Yeah.
and yeah. So I'm like, look, like whatever I have to do to help. Like, because I didn't want to steal the candy bar, but I'm like, she didn't even eat her spaghetti that I made. So like she
being all ungrateful.
Exactly. So yeah.
I guess one other small thing about Alice that we failed to mention was pretty much she didn't talk for the entire first chapter. She was just very cold. She didn't really communicate with you at all. And now you're just trying to win her back. And that's kind of like one of the major mechanics with Kara, just like, hey, this person approves of you or doesn't approve of you.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it's very important that you get her approval back because it seemed like you guys were thick as thieves before you got destroyed. So like she was very apprehensive about talking to you because you were no longer your former self. So you had to you were in the process of trying to win her back. So yeah, I'm guessing you. So where'd you say it, Greg?
So I tried to go to the house. Did anybody try and do that?
Yep.
The abandoned house?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have to find something, like some tool to cut through the fence?
Yeah, you find that, and then when I went to do that, I guess there's like a deviant that's there. I forget his name now, but like, yeah, that dude was extra creepy, and he already had and so like he had the
he
knife.
looked like he was about to stab you 50 times before you even talked to him.
Yeah, and as soon as that happened, because at first I was gonna go to the car because I'm like, all right, well this isn't optimal, but this is like probably the best it's gonna get. So I was like, I did that. She was complaining about it. So I was like, okay, whatever. Let's go check out the house. And then Ralph showed up. And then I was like, you know what? We're out. I'm going back to the car. Like, I'm not even going to play with this.
What about you, Trevor?
I had the literal exact experience as Greg, where I was like, the car doesn't seem great. Let me check out my options. Oh, yeah, I'm going to take this car. Did you feel worried at all? It's like, man, now this guy knows I'm here, and this car is literally right around the corner.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure if anything was going to happen from it, but I was like, all right, this is probably the best it's going to get, so I got to take it. Like,
all right, so I explored all my options. I went to the motel and, knew I had to get some clothes, but when I went to the laundromat, Alice gave me a hard time about stealing the clothes. Like, those aren't yours.
Yep.
And then I saw the trap house across the street, and said,
"Hey, it'd be just like your home, Alice."
Exactly. I was like, "Hey, this is an upgrade. At least Todd ain't there." But then they said I needed wire cutters in order to get through the fence, so I went back to the convenience store. I went there first, but I went back. And I saw all the cameras in there, so I knew it was a setup when it, told you could steal stuff. But I was just like
in real life.
But I was just like, well, Alice doesn't want me to steal these clothes, so let me go on ahead and grab this wire cutter. And so I took it, and then I cut my way into the abandoned house, and that was when I met Ralph. And I was creeped out too, but I figured, well, they already got me on camera stealing these wire cutters.
Wait. So you stole the wire cutters?
they're actually in the parking.
Yeah, they're in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Wait,
So
what?
There's multiple.
Bruh.
That was for nothing.
Man. Yeah, so they got me on camera. Stealing on my day off. But yeah, I met Ralph, and I was just like, you know what? Let me go on ahead and crash here. Ralph can't be any worse than Todd. So
Wow.
so went in. Let me tell you, this is probably one of the most interesting characters in this game.
He
Ralph?
seems like
Yeah.
I see. I never even got to meet him. So.
Do y'all watch Futurama or ever watch Futurama?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that one robot with the clamps?
Clamps?
Yeah, that's who he reminds me of.
Okay. I like it.
I mean, he's just kind of deranged, but he's actually the first android you meet, who is a deviant, and he's writing RA9 all over the wall. Like we run into it again, like in a
later chapter.
Yeah, a mandatory part of the story. But I guess since this part's optional, this is the first part where I've seen it. And you kind of ask him, like, you know, why are you writing RA9 on the wall? And he just turns and looks at you like, I don't know. Like he's almost doing it absent-mindedly. Like,
So
he doesn't even know. But yeah, we spend the night there.
Marcus, I really need you to look up a clip of that dude after this is done, because it's just, he comes out holding a knife, if I recall. He's like, hey, come in. What is fine?
Okay. He sounds tight.
He was very inviting. Like, once you...
And I didn't even have a bat to fight him with.
Didn't need one. What's up? So after you, actually, so we'll end talking about Kara right now, with you basically spend the night or whatever, find a place to crash with Alice. So we'll go on to the next character. So we'll talk about Markus, who
with a
is
K.
played by Markus with a K. Yeah, put some respect on my name.
How do you feel to be named after the worst android in the game?
Man.
Thank you for saying that, because he is the worst android in the game. They don't do my name justice. Yeah, like he's played by Jesse Williams, so he is. They don't really like androids are like different races, but they don't like overtly like talk about their race or anything. So he is portrayed by a black or I guess Jesse Williams is mixed or whatever. But anyways, like he's the one that goes through a lot of the. He's the one when you open up with him, you're in the city of Detroit and you're seeing a lot of the protests going on. You've been tasked by your owner to pick up some paints from the store, and so you go. You are the one that is witnessing the protest and all that uprising going on. You pick up the paints and you're trying to take the bus back. And you are the one that gets knocked down by the protesters, and you get punched and beaten up, and you just take it because you're an android and you're not supposed to retaliate, I guess, or you're peaceful. And the cop stepping in way later made me feel a type of way. And then once you get your paints, you get on a bus, and the android section of the bus is at the back of the bus, and that made me feel a type of way. And there was just
a little heavy-handed.
Yeah. Like I guess, and then like technically you're like the. I mean, it really is no different than Kara's situation, but you're technically like a butler/servant position for this. You end up going to your owner's house, and he's a very wealthy, handicapped white man that's a painter. So you drop the paint supplies off, and then you get to kind of see his house. He lives in a mansion, and he has a ton of money, really nice house. And then you got to wake him up and do some of the tasks as far as like making serving him dinner, or serving him breakfast. But like, unlike any of the other characters that you run into, you are in a good situation. It seems like this guy, he's an older man. I would say maybe in his 70s or whatever. He's handicapped. He's very appreciative of having you in his life, and he's very like he seems very pro Android, and like has no problem with you guys and like all that, and he feels very sympathetic to the plight of androids. There's always one, and I think what ends up happening, he's at one point he wants you to paint. He's like fascinated to see what androids how they can paint since he's like a super famous painter, and he that part we were talking about where you basically photocopy something, then you finally can paint something, and once you paint something, then I think his son pops in, and his son seems he's like Todd adjacent, so he's like a scumbaggy. Like he comes in with the pretext that like like I just want to see how my dad is. I haven't seen you in a while, but really he wants money, and like his dad basically loses. Are you still on that stuff? Basically, his son is like a degenerate, I guess, in his eyes, and his son is like basically taking money from his wealthy father to buy drugs or whatever, and he ends up like picking a fight with Markus, with you, and you guys end up getting in like he's like poking at you and prodding at you and just trying to start something, and at this point you're like you have the same thing that Kara has and you can deviate. And one, did you guys deviate at this point?
Yeah, I did.
Wait, is this the?
Yeah, he need to get those.
Is this
hands.
the second part?
Yeah,
Okay,
the
where they
one
come back
to
with the sun.
I think the first time he I think his son's Leo, I think, right?
Yeah.
His son is
His name
Leo.
was
Yeah.
Leo.
Yeah. I think the first time that they meet, it's just kind of like he just says some snide stuff, and then it's the second time where you get that opportunity
To throw hands.
Yep.
Yeah, because his son is very like upset that he's like, what do you see in this guy, or what do you see in this? They call it plastic. That's like almost like a derogatory term that they say for like they have all these different terms that they call androids to like kind of dehumanize them. Another strike. Dehumanize them and to just differentiate them and other them, and so like a lot of times they're referred to as plastic or hunk of parts or whatever, and so he's like, why do you care so much about this android but you didn't care about your own flesh and blood type situation is kind of how his son Leo feels.
I guess he kind of feels replaced too.
Sure, yeah, and instead of it being a job, it's
Because the whole Marcus thing is a father-son relationship.
And
they're kind of driving that home with the whole, like, paint what you feel and just, he really has this utmost respect for Marcus, the older dude. So.
Yeah, very much so. What's the guy's name? I feel bad about not remembering it. It's Carl.
Yeah.
Carl.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you guys all went deviant, right?
I think so. Yeah, I did.
Yep.
That's the only way you can go, isn't it?
I don't know. I think you can. But did you guys swing on them? Because I went deviant.
Yeah.
I didn't swing on them. I didn't swing on them.
You can break out of your programming, but you don't have to disobey Carl.
Yeah. So I didn't disobey Carl.
Does he not get shot if you don't do that?
Why is everybody getting
Does
shot
Leo
in
not
y'all's game?
get killed?
No, dude. So in my game, Carl has like a stroke or heart attack or something.
Yeah, that's what happened in mine.
Wait, so your Carl is dead?
Yeah.
My Carl is dead. Yeah.
What?
So when I push Leo, like I guess he dies at that point, or he appears unconscious, and then Carl says, "You got to get out of here," and then I'm like, "Oh, I don't have anywhere to go," and then after he says, "You got to leave," the cops show up, and then the cops are assuming I killed the dude, and they just shoot him.
They shoot Carl?
No, they shoot.
They shoot Marcus.
Marcus.
Oh.
You didn't get shot?
Yeah.
No.
Really?
Get shot. Yeah.
I got shot.
Actually,
Oh.
no. I did get shot.
So you still get shot either way.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
Yeah, because
But,
once you
in our games, Leo's dead. In your games, Carl is dead.
because once you start arguing with Leo, and I guess refusing to fight with him, Carl gets worked up and he has a heart attack.
Stroke or heart attack, yeah. So in your guys' game,
Well, let me tell you this:
y'all
like
swung on
Leo died, and he didn't get that worked up.
Y'all swung on Leo.
Yeah, it was
So-
like I think you just push him and he hits that whatever that contraption is that he puts his wheelchair
This
on.
is one of
thing.
those scenes that you were talking about earlier, where it's like, oh well, I didn't expect it to escalate like that. If I hit
Yeah.
this button,
Got you. You didn't expect to kill somebody when you pushed them.
Yeah.
See,
it
that's
was
why,
really fast too.
So
It
that's
was like,
why I steal,
push.
but I don't enact violence, Greg. Stealing is a victimless crime, but pushing people,
Hey, I didn't know it was
somebody could
gonna
die.
I didn't know it was gonna go down like that.
But yeah, as soon as the police show up, they start firing.
Bust shots.
Ask no questions.
Oh, it's like real life because the guy's black. I'm telling you guys, like it's kind of like.
did Leo rat on you?
Yeah, he's like, he did this because you're kind of standing over Carl trying to help him.
Okay, I figured as much.
But yeah, like, dude, like, it just makes me feel so weird because, like, all this is happening to the black android. Like, all the things. And you end up, so after you get shot, you end up waking up and you've been decommissioned and basically left in a pit of destroyed androids. And, like, it's actually kind of cool because you are decommissioned and like kind of scrap android. Like your audio and your video is destroyed. So like the way the game looks and sounds is very distorted. And even like you can barely even move like that well, like your legs, so you have to reattach limbs. So while you're in this pit, you're like finding other scrap androids, and it's almost like a hell because it's raining and it's just like a trash heap, and there's like it's muddy, and you're like it's like limbs are reaching out to you. You hear a lot of moaning android robots. It's very creepy actually, and you're like you're reassembling yourselves with compatible parts, and you end up reassembling yourselves and crawling out of the pit. And before you do that, like you run into a creature, or not a creature, an android that tells you about this place called Jericho. And basically, it's like Jericho is supposedly your salvation. So at this point, you as Markus are obsessed with finding this Jericho, and so you start following clues that are only left by that only androids can find, and basically it starts this. It's like almost like a mini game or quest that you have where you have like a picture that you have to find, like a specific symbol that is placed in a lot of the graffiti around the city, and you have to scan the symbol to get a new clue to further you along the journey. And it starts introducing this like rewind mechanic, or like this it's almost like a parkour. Like you can kind of pre-program a path to traverse further on, like you're in this abandoned you're in Detroit after all, and there's still abandoned buildings for some reason in 2038, even though they've had this huge economic renaissance. But for some reason, because you're in Detroit, there's still abandoned buildings. So you can kind of like parkour across some of the gaps and climb up some of these ladders and everything. So you kind of, there's multiple paths that you can take, and you can fine tune it, and you can program your character to do it. So then once you figure out the correct path, then you run the program, and then your character will do all the actions that you had it set to do to get to the next part. Did you guys like that part, or this section, or how did you guys feel about this?
The only thing I didn't like was I thought the kind of looking for the symbols in the painting or the graffiti was kind of corny, but the setting out your path or whatever, I thought that was kind of cool to switch it up.
I thought it was like,
I was definitely getting bored of doing that for a while.
Yeah, for me, like this part was the first part like that you like. I guess what I was kind of alluding to earlier, like each character has their own unique thing. So like with Kara, I feel like her unique thing is having this kid that you have to watch out for. So you have like all the decisions that you have to make are not necessarily for yourself. It is for another person. But then so she's gonna have I feel like the more story, like relationship heavy questions. And then I feel like with Markus, his he doesn't necessarily like he's a no man. Like nobody's looking for him or whatever. So like they had to do something to distinguish him. So they gave him this like parkour stuff, and like it's to me it's not fun or cool. It's kind of lame. It's very gamey. Like the whole like scanning the graffiti stuff was really lame too. I didn't really care for this section at all, and I don't know. It just makes him like very boring character to me. He doesn't necessarily have the three characters. He seems like the one that has the least amount of personality, which I guess is like they're androids and they're not supposed to have personality. But it just seems the most apparent with him. How do you feel about his section, Trevor?
It was like the gameplay. As far as the gameplay was interesting. Like I agree with you as far as him as a character. He doesn't have as much personality as Kara and Connor that you meet later, or that we'll talk about later. But I thought this game mechanic was pretty cool. The only thing I didn't like about it was that it still made it seem like there was only one correct path. Like I don't know if y'all ran into where once you choose like which path you want it to take, it would kind of tell you, oh, if you take this one, you're gonna die. Like this ledge is too high to jump to, so you have to find a different one.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wish that would have still played out. Not necessarily killing you, but you would have basically had to, try it again.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
I wish there were, I kind of agree with you. I wish you could have, like, played it out and, like, oh, that's the wrong one. Let me rewind and go to the right one.
Yeah.
Kind of like Life is Strange. Where it's like, you can play out and get the bad thing, but you can just rewind it and go ahead and do the good one,
Yeah. But I still thought it was...
Anything?
Still thought it was cool.
Do you remember anything, Dante, about that? Cause you were the one that was like most adamant about him being the lamest character.
I do think he's the lamest character, but I like a lot of his scenes.
Really?
So that scene in the robot graveyard is kind of amazing, and I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. Like, just all of the robots you have to salvage from, and like seeing them like function or dysfunction in different ways, and you kind of have to make some ethical choices here and there where it's like,
yeah,
man, this one's still kind of alive. Do I want to salvage parts from it? And is this right as an android?
Oh,
I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't get super spooked by it.
I was catching bodies.
I was spooked by it, but I didn't really see it like, I don't know, like I see the androids as people when they're full or whole, but like,
oh jeez,
I know. But I didn't really have any qualms about
just go send them to the glue factory. Why don't you?
Yeah, I didn't really have any qualms about taking disassembling them or anything because they weren't whole. And like we were all in like, I don't know, it was like the strongest survive, and that sounds really shitty, but like that's just kind of how I felt about at that section. So
like you're given a choice where there's one of the androids says, "Just take me out of my misery." I couldn't even do that because I felt bad. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that to this dude.
Wow, let him suffer, huh?
I mean, well, then I had to question it again because then I walked past another android and I needed a part, and then she was still alive, and she was like, "Oh, don't take this from me." And I was like, huh.
Sorry, I need this.
well, actually, no, I was like, well, I can't like just switch up my moral compass like that. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna let you chill, and I'll just try and see if I can find another one. If it came down to it, though, she was gonna go.
She's got it.
But
I need this. I need mines.
But I ended up looking around, and there's like another part you can take from Android that's not functioning.
So I think majority of the Androids I took parts from weren't functioning, so maybe that's why I didn't have the same like issue that you guys had.
There's a couple that you could talk to.
Yeah.
And they're
I mean,
like,
yeah, there
"Yo,
was some.
I'm still here."
I just don't remember like. I don't know, like. I don't know. I didn't really have any issues taking stuff from people though, so maybe that says a little bit about me.
Yeah, I mean, first the grocery store, now this.
By any means.
And the laundromat while I'm at it.
Yeah, man.
Hopefully none of those Androids had cameras, because you're probably caught on tape there too.
Hey, man, I already killed him, man. I'm on the run. But
yeah, I thought that part was really cool, and I didn't really have an issue with how the parkour thing was set up. I thought that was kind of cool, because kind of being, I don't want to say in that profession, but like in a profession adjacent to it, where like, okay, well, we deal with a lot of probability stuff. It makes sense for an Android to kind of run this analytic and like take the best possible path and kind of ignore the other ones.
okay. And then so once you crawl out of the pit, you end up I'm sorry, crawling out of the pit. I went too far back. So once you get all the clues to Jericho, you end up reaching a ship, and you get into the ship, and you are discovered. This part was super creepy too, because you're walking through this ship, and there's nobody around, and you have this flashlight, and you just have to just walk around and just explore. And that part was kind of creepy. There was a lot of moodiness in there, and I was just like, dang, of course. I got away with not playing Evil Within, but now I got to deal with this. And it wasn't too bad. It's definitely a vibe, but like not too awful.
There was like one little jump scare, I think, or not even a jump
Yeah,
scare.
and they
kind of
definitely played the music in a way that was like, oh shoot, like what was that?
Yeah.
And because I was thinking the entire time something's gonna like, it's too quiet. Something's gonna pop off, and sure enough, like, they play those scary chords, and then I was like, oh, so here's something.
Oh, one interesting thing too. We haven't talked about music yet, but one interesting thing that I read was that each character had a different composer. So that's kind of why you get like a different feel playing as them.
Didn't notice.
Really?
Yep.
I don't know. It kind of had like really atmospheric music.
I remember really liking the music, but I can't point out anything about the music whatsoever. Like, I think it does a really good job of setting up scenes and being there in the background. But it's not like, I need to go and listen to this track or purchase the MP3, because I'm not a crook like some people.
I don't know what you're trying to say. I got Spotify.
I'm just saying, they didn't catch me on camera.
Gotcha. But you end up finding a batch of androids, and you find out you're in Jericho, and they are like, they're in different states of repair. Some are like dying out, and some are holding on to dear life, or whatever you want to call it with androids. You end up meeting like their leaders, I believe, it's a black android named Josh, a white girl named North, and a white dude named Scott, and they seem to be like the three de facto leaders. And then you get to just kind of meet. I think they said there's 19 of them that are still alive, and there's some like, there are parts everywhere. There are some that are like on their last, like there's literally one that you meet that dies in front of you. They just shut down, and it's actually kind of creepy because like these androids, when they die, they don't look human anymore. They look very metallic, or they still look human, but they like just have like a metallic gloss to them. And the crazy thing is, so like this place Jericho was deemed as like a free place for androids to be, and they they aren't really they're living in squalor conditions. It's like better than like being subservient, I guess, but it's barely, I guess. They're barely holding on.
Well, I mean,
And
as a I don't want to call them an object because that's kind of the whole purpose of the game is to. But as like a non sentient being, what necessities could they possibly need? Or I guess on the surface.
I have no idea.
Because I mean,
It just seems
Well, these are deviants though, so they are sentient, allegedly.
yeah, because they all went through something to get there. Once you find out about this place, then it's like a whole ordeal. And they said like a lot of people didn't make it because they either got like attacked or like disassembled or whatever. So it was a very trying process to get to this point. And I guess the issue that I have, or whatever, I guess with respect to what you were saying, Trevor, is that like I guess yeah, what is heaven for an android, or like what is like freedom for an android? Because like that seems like a pretty crappy situation for humans. But like, what more do they need? So like because Markus seemed pretty apprehensive. He's like, you guys look like you're in a bad spot. Like, how can this actually be like a good situation? But he ends up offering to help get some spare parts. They're gonna break into the CyberLife facility to get some spare parts for the weakened androids, and then they're going to I guess live there on the ship. I don't really know like what the final plan is.
Yeah, for right now, they're just looking for resources so they can stay alive.
which one we haven't even discussed, but the blue blood. What did y'all think of that?
What you mean?
Like just as a thing.
I mean, like, everything needs some type of energy source, so I wasn't too much like, oh, this seems exceptionally, like, out of place or whatever in this world.
But is it something that like the only time they actually use it is like to when Marcus goes and finds Lucy and she repairs him and she's like, "Here, drink this." But other than that, they don't actually show them using it like as a life sustaining thing. I guess it's just for repairs.
I feel like you see a little bit of it with Connor.
Well, that's like when he's following traces of it, like when
So
somebody's
what are you
bleeding.
asking? What are you asking?
Like I don't know, it just
Essentially, the concept of blue blood.
it just seemed weird that they added it right there, and nowhere throughout the game had they even explained its purpose. Like in the early parts of the game, when you're following Connor, they kind of make it known that this is similar to human blood, I guess, for an android.
You mean what's the purpose of the blood?
Like, well, not necessarily its purpose, but how does it work? Like, is it
Like,
is it
why does an android have blood?
exactly?
Okay. So I actually don't know. I think it's like kind of like their life force is what I always
That's what I think they explained it was.
one of the interesting things that things that I found out from the context clues of reading was that there's a key component of android blood is thorium, and red ice, which is there's a huge red ice epidemic that's sweeping the nation, and the main ingredient in red ice is thorium. So like basically like a lot of the people, like I guess the way I'm taking it from what I know about drug issues and now is that people, do drugs as an escape. And like the main people we've seen, or one of the main people we saw that had an issue with red ice was Todd, and he was very like he hated, or I mean he didn't really have a lot of respect for androids, but here he is like basically ingesting android blood. Or really, that's kind of how it is. So I thought it was really kind of interesting that like this huge epidemic is sweeping the nation. So far, what we've seen is a lot of people that hate androids. Yet, like this drug, its main
They on that Android stuff.
yeah, exactly. I thought that was pretty. I don't know if ironic or there's a hint of irony in it. I guess that a lot of people that probably are using drugs to escape their real life problems, and maybe some of those problems being that their job got taken by an android, and they're, all that stuff. But yeah, I guess wrapping up with Marcus, you guys decide Scott, North, and Josh decide to, hey, we're gonna go break into Cyberlife and get these parts to heal our people, fix our people. So that's where we leave off with Marcus, and then our last character is Connor, who is he's a detective, I guess, or like a cop. And I thought I freaking love this intro. You start the very first chapter of the game as Connor, and it's a high stakes hostage situation. It's the tutorial chapter of the game, and it kind of teaches you how to play the game a little bit. Mostly it teaches you how to play as Connor, but it has some of the other things that the other characters see too. So his gameplay is more like his mechanic, I guess you can say, is he's a detective. So he's like finding clues and solving some type of mystery. And so there's this deviant android that has killed the couple that owns it and is taking their little girl hostage on the roof. And he's already shot a couple of human police officers that are trying to approach. So you're being brought there as like a negotiator to kind of literally talk him off the ledge. And so you're finding clues about what happened throughout the chapter. And it's a pretty tense chapter. I think, Trevor, did you say this was the...
Yeah, this was the demo
too?
that came out before the game released.
Okay. And yeah, you're just finding a lot of clues, and like I guess this thing that put this man on edge was that he was going to get replaced, or excuse me, the thing that put this android on edge was that he was going to get replaced, and he was really grown attached to the family and all that, and he didn't like the idea of being replaced, and so how'd you guys end up handling the situation? Did you guys end up like successfully, like, I think this is one of the best chapters that they could have used for. I think this chapter or the chapter with Kara trying to find a place to stay, probably the two best chapters that they could have chosen as a demo to like kind of show you like the kind of decisions and like gameplay mechanics of this game. And there was a lot of branching options for this. So how did you guys end up tackling the situation?
I think I ended up talking him, or at least I got him to the point where I thought he was gonna, back away and kind of let the hostage go. But I think he eventually like falls off with the girl, but you run and save the girl, and sacrifice yourself in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
What about you, Trevor?
Wait, so when you say sacrifice yourself in the process...
You fall with her?
Yeah, so like he's falling off with the girl, and then you run, and then you pull the girl, because I guess he kind of lets himself go, and then she's like, he has her held. You run, you pull her, throw her back like on the building, and you fall off at the same time.
But Connor's still alive for you, right?
Yeah, I guess they just reconstruct him, if I remember right.
What happened with you, Trevor?
So the first time I played this demo, I think Kara ended up dying.
Connor?
Sorry, no, the little girl.
The little girl?
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why I said Kara. But the little girl ended up dying. And so I played it probably about 3 or 4 times. And so when I started playing this game, I already knew what to do. And this time I was able to explore and get all the clues and talk the guy down but in the end, I still saved the little girl, and had the snipers put him down.
Okay. Do you remember what happened for you, Dante?
Yeah, I mean, I know I at least saved the girl, and then I think the snipers. I don't think you can stop the snipers, can you?
Well, I guess eventually, I
Because
guess
they're not
the
going to
dude
listen to
dies
Connor.
either way, right? You know, either he either commits suicide, or the snipers take him out.
Yeah.
For me, I got him talking, and he got comfortable enough with me that I could walk up to him, and
Hmm.
I basically pushed him and took the girl or pulled the girl up, and then he shot me, and then I fell down off the building with him, and
Damn, so you guys both had Connor die.
yep, yep. Um, I
It's a little weird and kind of bothers me a little bit. Oh, I guess it has happened this way, but it kind of bothers me that like there's all these different ways that it can play out, but they all eventually kind of lead to the same road, right? Like,
Well, there are parts eventually where, like, characters won't come back if they die.
definitely the side
I
characters.
think just because it's so early in the game, they're kind of giving them an out.
Yeah. Um, so the next time you run into Connor, because you don't run into Connor to chapter 6, so I was thinking that was just like a one-off thing. I didn't realize he was the main character. But you end up having to find your partner that you've been assigned to, so you have to walk into this bar, and the um, the character is like this dude that's clearly past his prime, and he's pretty reluctant to leave with you because he's not really a fan of androids, and you basically have to check out this this crime scene that this deviant android has killed its owner. And then this is another situation where you're doing a lot of evidence collecting and just kind of trying to piece together what happened. And this is also like with Markus, you got to do the little rewind thing to. Um, I didn't mention this in the first chapter, but with Markus, you get to do the rewind to like kind of playing around to do the little parkour section. The Connor has the same ability, but for him, he can see the crime as it's happening. So like once he finds pieces of evidence, he can kind of see like, oh, like this is what happened, and this is why there's a blood droplet here. And okay, so like, what did the person get hit by? Then you find the weapon, and then it kind of reconstructs the crime scene with the weapon involved, and you can kind of see like, oh, well, once the person got stabbed, the blood trail leads here, and this is what happened here. So it's really cool. It kind of reminds me. This sounds stupid, but it kind of reminds me of like the detective stuff that happens in Arkham, the Arkham series. I think it's a lot better than that, but it kind of just reminds me of that. And you can kind of scan bodies to try to see like, oh, like what happened, like, oh, this thing pierced this person's lung, or this thing happened, or blunt force trauma, so this person got hit by a blunt object, or they fell, or things like that. And I think this is the first time in the game at this point that you would have run into the RA stuff if you found it with him, which is it seems like an android like cultish like situation. Like it basically there's like some androids that just start writing these scribbles of RA9 like hundreds of times, and so it's just really like occultish like, and you end up piecing stuff together. And did you guys end up finding the deviant?
Yeah, I found him.
I feel like you have to find him, I'm assuming, to progress the story.
is this the deviant at the crime scene?
Yeah, yeah, the black one.
Okay, yeah.
So you find
Yeah.
him, and you end up taking him in. He kind of basically says like the thing, he basically was abused, and like very seriously physically and verbally abused, and he was just scared, and he didn't mean to kill the guy. So, like something just snapped, I guess, and so once you take him in, you end up he's being interrogated by two human cops in whatever the interrogation room, and you and your partner are kind of uh, uh, watching, and they're not gathering any information. So you decide, hey, let me try it. Let me get a swing at him, and so you start interrogating him, and you can kind of find out like his situation, and just like you can kind of see why he did what he did, and then like I don't know, something I forgot, the two police officers, or at least one of the police officers that is interrogating him, is a real dick, and he like tries to rile the guy up, and like I guess androids have this defense mechanism that causes them to self destruct or something. I don't really understand. And
Deviants do.
Deviants do. Okay, it's like a failsafe for deviants, and um, actually two things. So that the way they do the interrogation thing, you have control over what you ask him, and you're trying to get him into this sweet spot where he's like, there's like a percentage gauge while you're interrogating him, and you want him to get to a certain percentage and kind of stay in that area, which I thought was a really cool way of, like, you could kind of tell which questions were going to be a little bit more aggressive versus which ones are going to be a little bit more like passive. I don't know if like it was a little leading, because if it gamified a situation where you would legitimately feel compassionate towards this person or this android, but the game forces you to play in a specific way to get information out, which I don't know, like depending on how you feel about it, could be good or bad. But
I think that's another thing that adds to the complexity of Connor as a character too, because it seems like his interactions with other characters have a lot more weight than it does with Kara and Markus.
Well, does it though? Because I feel like Kara's have a lot of weight too.
Well, at least not immediately. Like there's no instant gratification from it. Like you can immediately get like a certain response out of a character by choosing a certain statement. But with Kara, it was like, either way, Todd was going to get angry, or, you had to, I think I don't know, it seems like you're supposed to act a certain way with Alice. Like, you're not supposed to try to ruin your reputation with her. Whereas
Sure.
with Connor, you can play it multiple ways, and you'll get to different scenarios.
Gotcha. Did you like the interrogation thing then, or?
I thought it was a nice callback to one of my favorite movies of all time.
Go ahead, keep going.
You guys ever seen iRobot?
No. What about it? Yeah, I've seen it.
I've never heard iRobot in favorite movie of all time. In the
Trevor really likes the Chronicles of Riddick series. So if that's his favorite like series, then you already know that guy just has a different taste than you.
Fair.
So, like, I used to read a lot of Isaac Asimov's books, and iRobot is based on like one of the books in his series. And
can I ask you, did you read his books because you were a fan of Russia?
Actually, yes.
I knew it.
But yeah, he did a lot of like a lot of his books dealt with human interaction with androids and with robots, and how you would see civilization evolve with the incorporation of autonomy in society, and I thought there would be a couple more references in this game to some of his work, because he's like one of the big science fiction authors of all time. But I haven't caught any yet. But yeah, this
Gotcha.
interrogation scene reminded me of the interrogation scene from iRobot.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like that movie. It's not one of my favorites, but I like it a lot. Got a young what's his name?
Shia LaBeouf.
Thank you. I was about to say Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's like, yeah, Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, did you guys, did the Android self-destruct for you guys? For you guys? Or were you able to?
No.
When you
What
say
about you?
self-destruct, what do you mean? Like,
I don't think
Basically,
they actually blow
he
up.
deactivates and like he's
Yeah.
no longer is working.
okay, so my Android or my Deviant didn't do that. He basically banged his head on the table until he lost all the blue blood in his head.
Okay, that didn't happen for me either.
You can die in that scene again, though.
You can?
Yes, Connor can die in that scene as well. I was watching Giant Bomb's extra live stream, and Drew Scanlon happened to be playing this game. And I can't remember the specifics, but he got to the headbanging thing. And then I think there's a part where you can tell, like, the cops to stand down or the other people in the room to stand down. And if you do that, something happens and Connor pretty much dies.
Weird.
Yeah, so I guess at this point in the game, you could have him die up to 2 times, I guess. You've only played as him twice, so that makes sense.
Okay. Well, the guy didn't self-destruct for me, and I didn't have any issues with him banging his head or anything like that either. So,
Can we talk about how good the cop partner is, whose name is escaping me at the moment?
It's
Hank?
no. Well, he's saying that the actor though. You're saying the actor?
No, I'm talking about like
Okay.
the actual dude
yeah,
in the
like
game.
yeah. Then Hank, Lieutenant
Hank is
Anderson,
so
right?
good.
Yeah.
Hank Anderson. Why do you like him?
His acting is really, really on point. Most of his lines are really, really like, I don't know. He just has a way of conveying himself, and you can tell that he's this haggard cop, but at the same time, like, he's very conflicted about certain things. And I guess you haven't really gotten as like far enough to realize what's going on with him, but he's an interesting dude. So you should pay attention to him.
His name is it's Clancy Brown is the actor that plays him. And you might know him as Mr. Krabs.
No.
Yeah, it's Mr. Krabs.
Wait, you serious?
Yeah.
That's pretty weird.
Years of experience.
Yeah. So he also plays I'm trying to think of anything else you guys would have seen. I don't see anything like movies. I mean, he's in a lot of stuff, but I'm just trying to think of but that guy is the voice of Mr. Krabs. So
The only thing I
That's
saw
pretty
was that the character who portrays Kara, she was in Twilight.
see, I never watched it. So
I think she was in a few other shows too, but that was probably the big thing she was in.
But I agree with you. He probably has the most standout lines. I like him as a character. Oh, I'm on the fence about him.
He's
as
a really
character.
good bad cop to your good cop right now.
He's a very like man. I want to win him on my side. Like I haven't given up on him yet. Is how I feel about him. It's like man, I really want.
Yeah, and he's like the main thing Connor plays against. Every time you're making a decision, it's like, am I making Hank happy right now? Is Hank Senpai gonna be happy with this decision?
But yeah, I like him, and I'm just trying to get him on my side. But where are we at? So afterwards, after the interrogation, you basically you are at the police department. You got to find Hank's desk, and you're gonna meet up with Hank and see. This is the opportunity for you because you get there before him to learn a little bit more about him, and you can kind of explore the police station, and you get to talk to both of the 2 cops that were in the room with you as well, with the interrogation room. And at this point, you get to meet the captain too, who is Hank meets up with the captain, and he's like super against you even being his partner. He doesn't want anything to do with you, and this part really frustrated me because he makes the comment, which is like, in 2018, this is a pretty innocuous comment to make. 2038, not so much. He says, I shouldn't, basically the gist of the conversation is I shouldn't have to work with this android, or even I shouldn't have to investigate androids because I can barely even change my phone settings. And this guy was born in 1985. He's only 5 years older than me. Like, unless phones get super, I'm guessing phones get super confusing or something, but just like, I consider our generation is fairly tech savvy right now. Who knows in 20 years if we will continue to have a little bit of savviness, but like that just something about that just struck me the wrong way. And I was just like, "Are you serious?
Well,
Like what?"
I'm guessing the game doesn't necessarily pick up, right from 2018 where we are right now. Maybe it.
Yeah, it's 2038.
Well,
It's
I'm saying maybe
2038.
it deviates from this timeline, like earlier, like maybe in the 90s, like something happens with cell phones, and they're not necessarily as advanced as the ones we had in the 90s.
I hate to break it to you, but in 2038, we're not going to have super cool robots like this.
No.
Yeah,
I think they're more advanced than we are.
they're definitely more advanced than us. But it was just like when I heard that, I was just like, "What?" Like, I don't know why. It just was like, man, like the the only other thing too. From there, you get to kind of talk to Hank about his background and kind of prod him for information or whatever, and kind of get a feel like about the character and what's up with you, man. How are you doing? And just relationship building stuff. And then from this point, the next chapter is you pick up
Well,
where we left.
before you go into that,
Okay.
I'd have a question for y'all. So,
Okay.
do some of the dialogue options that you have with Hank seem kind of misleading? Like, you're supposed to be building a rapport with Hank, but there's usually like one good answer or one good question out of like the four that you can ask him. Like, do y'all just go through all of the questions, or do y'all just hit one and then leave him alone?
So for me, when I was doing the little desk part, I was like, I just wanted to find out about his background, right? So I asked him all the questions, and there was two like good ones and two bad ones, and I was like, well, that's kind of whack. So I would try to pick whatever one was the most appealing or stood up to me the first time, and then I just wouldn't ask him the other ones because I didn't want to get negative points. So I'm not necessarily poking and prodding, I guess is the word, him as much as I normally would, just because I don't want to have the negative interaction with him, because I do want him to like me, so I want to have like a good relationship with him, so I just try to do things that I feel like will win him over. So it has changed how I play.
Yeah, so I just took the approach of I ask the questions that I think I would ask Hank in real life, and try not to overstep boundaries, try to pretty much annoy him or anything like that. So I might ask two or three of the questions, but definitely not all of them.
Yeah, I think I kind of followed the same route. Whereas I tried to, you know, not
Read
get
the
on.
room.
Yeah, right. It was like I'm not gonna ask something that's like that I know is gonna piss him off. So it's like I kind of wanted to stay on his good side.
Well, I asked him one question about like the sports team he had on there, and it ended up being a negative.
Yep.
Oh yeah, he
I
does.
was just
Yeah.
like, man, that was really stupid. Okay.
I felt the same way. This is silly. Um, yeah, but anyways, so the next chapter, it picks up, and we're going to pick up back with Kara. And so you wake up with Alice and wherever you stayed at. And I guess I'm wondering how this is for you guys, because in my game, since I was in the hotel, um, you, she's like, I'm going to go, you take a bath and I'm going to get us some food or whatever. And we can't stay here. We got to go somewhere else. We didn't have enough money, but just for the one night. And so you're leaving the motel, and you see police cars pull up, and they have interrogated the hotel front desk front desk clerk person, and basically said, "Have you seen this person?" And of course, the people asking are Hank and Connor, and so then you as Kara go back into the room, and then or you're seeing this cutscene, right? And then so Kara, she scampers back into the room, and then you play as Connor, and you're supposed to go to room 28, which is the room that they stayed at. And I should say this too. One of the other things too with Connor at the very end of his last chapter is you guys are basically like, okay, we're going to look into all the Android cases that we have on file, and you can scroll through and through your files to see all the cases. And one of the cases is Marcus's case, and one of the cases is Kara's case. So Marcus' case, like I guess the murder that he apparently committed on his Carl, and then the other one is Kara's either murder of Todd or I'm assuming kidnapping of Alice, one or the other. So they're both case files that you have as Connor, and you just download them all. And I guess this just ends up being the first one you get the lead on. So, anyways, you as Connor, you and Hank go up to room 28. Hank kicks down the door, and you find the apartment empty. And then now you see Kara is you get to play as Kara, and it's a stealth sequence, I guess. There's these cops in the vicinity, and you're trying to elude them. And I did not understand the this stealth sequence. It didn't make any sense to me, so I got caught pretty quickly. So then she started running. You get to a certain point, and I got to that point. And then you take back control of Connor, and now you're in pursuit of Kara, and you're chasing her. And Kara and Alice end up hopping over this fence, and then they're on this highway, and Connor is gonna go after them, but Hank says, "Don't go." And at this point, you have the opportunity to listen or not. Did you guys listen, or did you guys not listen?
Oh, sorry. What was the choice?
Did anybody listen to? So with Connor chasing Kara and Alice, did you guys listen to Hank when Hank said "don't go," or did you guys go after them still?
So that didn't even happen in my game.
Yeah, I was about to say, did anybody else fail the stealth stuff?
Stealth stuff.
I didn't.
I mean,
oh man, Kara is terrible at stealth.
I didn't understand that section at all, dude. It was crappy.
Every time you got close to a cop, there was always something that you could hide behind. So like,
yeah, it was just blending in.
I know, but it would be something like I'm in cover and the percentage is still going up.
Yeah, it would go up as they got close, and you just had to keep holding the button so you would stay hidden.
Yeah, you gotta stay cool.
Well, I ended up getting caught like near the end, and so I was able to like push him off and just get to the very end.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
They had all that video data from the convenience store.
So can I tell you all about what happened in my chapter? Because it's pretty different from that.
Sure.
So first thing, you're playing as Kara in this chapter, and she wakes up and she goes upstairs and changes clothes because I guess I did a bad job of stealing the clothes from the laundromat. So there's clothes upstairs that I have to go and find, and then it instructs me to cut her hair. So I actually go in the bathroom, cut Kara's hair, and then I can change the color of it. It lets you pick whichever color you want. I think I ended up picking black. Oh no, I picked white. Oh, so it did let y'all do that in y'all's game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was in the hotel, so.
And so I go back downstairs, and let me see. I can't remember what happens at that point. But eventually, Ralph is awake, or is in the room, and he set up a breakfast table because he hears that that Alice is hungry. Man, this is the most hospitable person I've ever stayed with. Because this man goes out and finds a beaver or a possum or something. And he's just like, yeah, look what I found you. And he was like, humans got to eat, right? And so this man takes it, and I guess, I don't remember if I think he cooks it in the fireplace that's in the house. But yeah, he tosses it on the table, and he has a knife in his hand, and everybody's sitting at the table, and he's just staring at Alice like, eat! Go ahead, eat! And then he gets angry. He's like, I said eat! And he just gets hostile, and as Kara, you just kind of have to de-escalate the situation. And then you look out the window and you notice there's police out there, and I guess that's the part where you kind of switch over to Connor, and he's questioning people about if they've seen Kara or seen a deviant android, and that's the part where they're like, oh yeah, we got our own camera stealing wire cutters. And I was just like, dang, they got me. And so Connor kind of puts two and two together. And he's just like, so she stole some wire cutters, and she needed a place to stay. So that means she must have cut her way through the fence, and she's in the house. And so he goes and investigates the house, and he looks through the window, and he sees Ralph standing up in the middle of the room, just doing nothing. And he gets into the house, and Kara and Alice have hidden somewhere, but you can't see them as Connor. So Connor's looking around, and he's talking to Ralph in the middle of the room. And while you're talking to him, there is a those little meters that pop up to show you your I guess the
scene, or like how,
like in the first scene with the hostage, as the dialogue options changed, like if you made the wrong option, the numbers would decrease. Well, there was one of those, but it changed depending on where you were in the room, kind of like a hot and cold type thing. So like whenever Ralph got nervous, it would go up or it would go down, and whenever he was calm, the percentage would go up. And so that kind of lets you know where in the room Kara and Alice were hiding. And so you could kind of question him, and it would help raise or lower that little meter. But as you walked around the room, that also kind of gave it away, like, oh, he's getting nervous now, so I must be close to where they're hiding. And like as you move close to the stairs, you kind of ask him, like, is anybody upstairs? And Connor can tell that he's not lying when he says no. But the meter was going up as you got closer to the stairs. But in the end, they were hiding underneath the stairs, and he finds them, and I think Ralph pulls a knife or something on Connor, and Kara and Alice are able to escape, and they run away, and that's when they get to the scene where you have to decide as Connor, do you want to obey Hank or chase after them?
Okay.
But it was, man, that's probably the funniest scene of the game so far for me.
Did you chase or did you
follow I
Hank?
followed Hank's orders. I'm sorry y'all missed out on it because that was a hilarious scene.
I'm going to have to check that one out. So at this point, had everybody pried off their Android chip?
Yeah.
Yeah, both Kara and Markus.
Yeah, I meant like during their car scene.
Okay.
Car version of the scene, yeah. But yeah, I managed to stay hidden, so I don't think I had any type of chase.
Okay, well, I didn't chase either, but at this point, as Kara going, like, this is the other part, this is the part I was talking about. Besides getting beat up by Todd, I got hit by some cars.
got beat up by the cars.
Yeah, I got beat up by some cars, so,
She didn't have the Frogger APK?
No.
Downloaded?
So yeah, it was rough for your boy, but I made it out alive and crossed the street, and she gets away, and then the final chapter with Connor, you guys are on your way to another crime scene, and this is another part where you get some more flavored text with Hank, and he stops to get some food, and I think every freaking chapter is like Hank says, "Stay in the car," and then you just don't listen to him. That's another trope, which is like it's like a cop movie thing. it's like always like the person that never listens or whatever. But I just think it's funny that he's always like stay in the car, and you never do, and you get to find out a little bit more about him. And at this crime scene is somebody heard a loud noise or something, and so you end up in this apartment, and you end up going to the apartment, and it's just filled with pigeons, and just tons of it, and it's really affecting Hank, where he's just like, oh, it just smells so bad in here, and so he ends up having to open up the air, and he's just getting like, I guess he's like asthma issues with it. So like you're like looking up clues, and he wants to leave, and I end up sticking around, and you end up seeing this is another one of those androids that you don't know what he's done, but he has the RA9 stuff written. I think it was like 2,000 something times on one of his walls, and he has a lot of like these symbols of like this maze symbol written on his walls, and did you guys end up finding him? I ended up finding him, and
Yeah, I found him.
okay. And
I might be getting the two mixed up. Is this the one you find in the attic,
there,
or was that the previous
both ones you find in the attic.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
Is this the one that has the murdered dude at the bottom?
no, so that's the
No.
earlier one. This one, you don't know what his crime is. People just said there was a loud noise coming from this place, and you go in, and the guy ends up hopping out the attic, and then it gives chase, and there's that really long extended chase scene, and I actually really enjoyed this because like, as Connor, you're chasing after this android, and every time you come up to like a new section, you can kind of scan and kind of plot out your route, whether it'll say something like this is the safe but not direct, versus this one has more obstacles, and it'll be slower, or this is the most direct route or whatever, and you can kind of like choose the path you want to take. And it's like those kind of chase scenes like you see in the movies where you're like hopping over stone walls or fences, running through a greenhouse and hopping over tables of plants, and like climbing up a ladder and hopping from building to building. It's a really long chase scene, and it ends up culminating with you're chasing after him because Hank told you to, and then he ends up getting the drop on the guy, and the guy ends up like pushing Hank off the ledge of this building, and at this point you get the opportunity to either apprehend the suspect or save Hank. What did you guys choose?
So I ended up just chasing the suspect just because.
Wow,
I'm looking at that.
This
well,
dude
hold on.
over here trying to guilt me for trying to think of a little girl.
So, like, all right. So I was thinking about it for a second. It's one of those time decisions, right? So you don't have long to do it. And I looked at it. I was like, probability of survival like 93 or 94%. I'm like, oh, he's good. You know what I'm saying? He gonna be fine. I got to make sure I get this dude. Yeah. I thought about it after the fact because I didn't think he was gonna be pissed about it. For some reason, that's what my thought process was like. All right, he's not gonna be too mad about it. And then that was completely the opposite. But
yeah, so for mine it said like probability of survival 87%, but for some reason I was thinking that was if I helped him. so I was like, I'm gonna go help him. Plus I wanted to be on his good side anyway, so I figured that would like, I don't even know what this dude did, and he didn't technically, like, as far as I know, this android didn't do anything wrong, so I don't know if he committed a crime or anything, so he's just a deviant.
It was one of those decisions I instantly regretted making, like, after I did it, because I was thinking to myself, I bet you, even if I would have saved him, I still would have caught this dude anyway. So I'm like, why didn't I just do that anyway?
Oh, well, unlike you, I didn't regret my decisions of stealing, or...
Like,
what about you?
I ended up saving him, and I kind of second guessed my decision because I made it like really quickly. It was a split second decision, and then I noticed it like right when I pressed the button that the probability of him surviving was really high, and so I was just like, oh man, I could have caught that guy. But now that Greg said, it would have, made Hank mad, I'm glad I did save him because it kind of helped increase his.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I was like, I want to stay on Hank's good side, so. Do you remember what you did, Dante?
Yeah, I definitely saved Hank.
Good man.
Seemed like the right thing to do. It was a split second type of thing, but I'm not a monster.
All right. Well, do you guys have any questions, or I have one. I've been pretty much asking that throughout, throughout our playthrough, but I just have one left I have to ask. Okay. Well, do you guys like the story skipping around? I know, like, the way we delivered it now was just like we kind of stayed with one character, but do you guys wish you could have done like it? They broken it up in like 3 different sections.
No.
You preferred it?
That wouldn't have worked at all.
Why you said that?
It'll make more sense once we get further in the
Okay.
game, but you want it to be chronological like it is.
Okay, because I was thinking, like, I don't like the game, but like Resident Evil 6, where like the other characters that you played in the game drop in and out, so you just choose the character that you want to play, and so you can see like this story, the Chris's story, or I forgot what Leon's story or Ada's story, and you could just kind of play throughout theirs. And
Didn't some of those stories intertwine? Or
yeah,
am I,
they
like,
intertwined,
forgetting?
because that's what I was saying. Because like with Connor and Kara, they intertwined in one of the chapters. So far, of the 16 chapters we played, there's only been one that intersects. But like I'm assuming that happens a little bit more often in the back half of the game, especially if Connor has cases for both Kara and Markus. So
Yeah, I kind of like the Game of Thrones style of the narrative. And a guy at my job, he was actually pretty excited when I told him that we were playing this game, and because he said it's like one of his favorite games from, I guess, recent years. But
so he said a question.
I should have asked him for one.
You didn't plug the email
Janitor
of the
at
podcast?
trevorsjob.com.
I did plug the podcast, but he told me there's a really big payoff for the storytelling.
Gotcha. Well, do you guys have anything, or?
I have one question.
So before
You can go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was just gonna ask, like, we've talked a lot about this game, but we haven't said how beautiful it is, and I just wanted to make sure that it gets its due for like all of the stuff artistically and graphically that it's performing on the current gen consoles, because it really doesn't seem like it should be possible at times.
Specifically,
I kind of wish I was playing it on a... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say specifically Marcus's chapters seem very, I guess the color palette seemed very well thought out. Like, especially that opening scene with him walking through Detroit. I think that one really like establishes the like the setting really well. And then him in the like that pit, the android graveyard. I thought that one was really cool.
Mm-hmm. See, I think that intro scene with Connor at times was borderline CG quality.
Talking about with the quarter.
The quarter stuff was cool, like the whole rain effect was cool, and just how everything was interacting. And there's a lot of physics going on right there with like the helicopter's wind making Connor's clothes ripple and stuff, and it just seemed like a very realistic shot that I'd actually see in like a CG movie.
Yeah, and technically, like I guess the character interaction, like the characters are very responsive to like stuff in the environment. So I don't know if like when you were in that first scene playing as Connor, like when you're walking outside like towards the deviant and you're brushing past objects, like if you move close enough to an object, he'll actually use his hands to like shift it to the side. And I've noticed that in a couple of other parts of the game too.
And when, it pretty much goes without saying, all the facial animation stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say earlier, I kind of wish I was playing this game on like a PS4 Pro, because like, I mean, just playing it on like my monitor or whatever. I'm not even playing it on my 4K TV or whatever, but it even looks good on that. Like,
Yeah, this game is pretty. Agreed. Do you got any? Did you have a question, Trevor?
Okay, so my question is kind of a two-part question. You can answer whichever one you want to. But if you had an android, like one of the ones from the game, what kind of job would you give it? And then the other side of that question is, if you were an android from this game, what job would you want?
Wait, so we have to answer both, right?
No, you only have to answer one if you want.
I guess a maid, right? That's what I would want, is to have a android be a maid. That's probably about it.
I'd be a sex bot.
You would be the sex bot?
Yeah. Because I think the maid is like the easy answer as far as like what I would want to, like what you would want to have. You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's more interesting to think what would I be, and like I don't think anything would be like, oh yeah, I would love to do that, but maybe that.
See, my first thought was I'd want one that could do my job for me.
That's what I was thinking too.
And then you would have no job.
So that's fine.
It's an interesting conundrum.
You wouldn't have any.
He's going to make the money anyway, right? What's he going to do?
No, you wouldn't have. No, the whole point of having androids is you don't have to pay them.
Well, exactly. But if he does his job, he's just collecting the paycheck, right?
Yeah, I invest in the android, and then pretty much the android is my source of income from then
But
on out.
why would your employer?
Exactly.
Well, he can't collect the paycheck. The android can't.
What I think what maybe me and Trevor are saying.
Oh, he's saying
if your employer saw that you weren't working, then they would be like, well, we're not going.
Isn't this the problem that the people in this game have in the first place?
Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, well, what's the point of paying Dante? Then they're going to think like even bigger, like, what's the point of paying anybody? We could just get 15 androids.
Why don't we just buy androids in bulk? They're cheaper. So yeah, that one's off the table.
Sex bot.
No, I can't. If I was an android, I would want to be somebody's friend.
Be the running bot. Like they have the athlete bots. You can be an athlete, a professional.
You're right.
One.
Let me do that. Put me in, coach. I don't get torn ACLs. I don't get concussions.
Oh man. That would be so unfair. It's just like, oh man. What about you, Trevor?
Now you're making me think of the insidious side of it, where it's like, well, these androids, we can repair them. They got Tom Brady on their team. Why don't we just kind of wreck this dude? We can fix ours for a couple thousand. That man's not getting up again.
Right? And you still probably wouldn't have to pay androids either.
Nope.
You'd have
Like
more salary to have better players on your team, better human players.
So my one other quick question is, if you had one device in your house that could be sentient, what would it be?
But it would still do its job?
Yeah, so like it's not going to grow hands and do anything special, but essentially it is a living, thinking piece of machinery.
I'm going to say something weird like my refrigerator.
Dang it.
That's what you're thinking.
Hello, Greg. I've seen you've been eating a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just be like, what you got? What you got? You know, like so that way I wouldn't have to open up my refrigerator to know what's in it. But then also I could just get a refrigerator that, you know, I guess if it's in the future, or if I have enough money, then I could just have a fridge that has an inventory. Actually, you know what it'd be? It'd be the oven, because then I could have the oven like turn itself off and on, so I wouldn't have to be there to. Yeah, it'd be the oven, so I could cook without having to be there, so I wouldn't have to worry about burning the house down.
Well, you still have to put the food in there.
I mean, I know, but what I'm saying is if I put the food in for like 2 hours, or not 2 hours, but if I put the food in for 45 minutes, I could go leave the house and go do something.
Oh,
and then the oven's not going to be on for the entire time I'm away. You know.
Also, just set a timer.
I mean, yes, I set a timer, but the thing is like nobody's going to be there to turn the oven off.
No, I thought. Well, I might be wrong. I thought that was some oven, like a timer that like actually shuts off the oven after like.
Oh no,
After it's over.
the timer just lets you know, man, you don't cook, do you?
No, I mean I do. I'm just saying. I swore that was
There
like on
might
my
be a
oven.
smart oven.
Yeah, I thought that was on my oven, but I could be wrong.
Oh, well, if you got it like that, then my bad.
You don't have the oven app? Just Bluetooth controlled. I think mine would probably. I'd like to say my PC, just because it's so versatile.
I don't want my
Though it might
PC
be.
talking about what's on it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, man. It's like, oh, I've looked at your search history. This is some interesting stuff here.
Well, you wouldn't need to have weird search history if you were a sex bot. That's all I'm saying. All right. I think Trevor he got disconnected or something. So I'm assuming we don't have any questions.
Nah,
All right.
no questions.
Well,
but you guys already know the deal.
Yeah.
Hit us up at
Any of those Twitter bots out there that want to hit us up,
yeah.
talk about your people.
You can hit us up at misscheckpoints@gmail.com via email or on Twitter at mcheckpoints. Think that's right?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So
And where can people find you?
either of those two.
And where can people find you?
What'd you say?
Where can people find you?
Oh, man, I'm everywhere. You guys can find me on Twitter at Boombox Hero. Facebook is Boombox Hero as well, and on Twitch at twitch.tv/xdrdmagnegrox.
Where can people find you, Dante?
People can find me at twitch.tv/awakencloud. I've been going through Shadow of the Tomb Raider recently, and I'll also be going through, what was the other game? I think I'll try Deltarune pretty soon, so look forward to that.
You can find me at Potato Salad on Twitter, and like I said, Trevor's out. I think he got disconnected, but they can watch him stream Detroit on Twitch at Lyric Unsung. I saw him earlier playing, not today, but like when he was playing earlier chapters, and yeah, it's also fun to watch. So check him out. And does anybody got anything else? All right, cool. Well, we are Mixed Checkpoints, and we are out. Peace.